Rams House, welcome into a brand new episode of the Rams Report presented by Prize Picks. Guys, sign up for Prize Picks and play alongside all of us here at Chat Sports. And when you win your first $5 lineup with code HMA at sign up, you're going to get $150 in bonus lineups. But on today's episode, we're breaking down what's going on with Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously the Rams' backup quarterback the last 2 seasons, made some overtures early on this offseason about potentially considering retirement, but now we have a new report. And this new report came in very recently that says he's open to an NFL return. We're going to break it down on today's show and whether the Rams should be open to a Jimmy return. But before we get into that, I want to know what you guys think. Are you open to bringing Jimmy G back? Let us know in the comments section below. Where do we stand on the need to bring in the veteran backup? Obviously, a bunch of experience in both the Rams scheme and schemes across the NFL. He's been a starter at times, taking teams to a Super Bowl. There's a lot of I don't know what the word is, resume there, I guess. A lot of accolades there to some degree. Should the Rams bring him back? Let us know in the comments below. But of course, this all got started with a new report from the insiders. Jimmy Garroppolo, according to Mike Garroppolo, considered retirement this spring, which we knew, but he's very much open to playing this season in the right situation. I want you to keep that quote in the back of your mind. Nothing imminent, but he's an experienced veteran QB available for a team that might need one in the near future. So again, from those quotes, we kind of start to gather a few things. And the biggest one that stands out to me, and we'll dive into this in more depth, but that playing in the right situation, playing this season in the right situation, is he only open to roles that give him the opportunity to potentially be a starter? I think we're kind of getting hints in that direction. Obviously, this is the first one. This quote of playing in the right situation, playing specifically in the right situation, because I think a lot of Rams fans see that and they're like, what about us wasn't the right situation if you do want him back? What about being in Los Angeles wasn't right for him? I think really the only thing that could be not right for him is that he knows he's going to spend the entire season sitting behind the reigning MVP. There's going to be no real chance to start. But the other thing that hints towards this being him waiting on a situation where he could start is nothing is imminent. And again, that speaks to the idea. All 32 teams at this point, I think they feel confident in who they have as a starting option. Maybe bar the Arizona Cardinals. Maybe the Arizona Cardinals a little bit hesitant about the idea of pushing Carson Beck out there. I know they're still dealing with things with Jacoby Brissett. And then lastly, specifically, not in the tweet, but in the video attached to it, Mike Garroppolo and the insiders mentioned he may be waiting for an injury situation to pop up where he could then come out of retirement there and take that opportunity, a la Joe Flacco with the Browns just a couple of years ago, where he comes off the couch and ends up winning comeback player of the year. But all of this to indicate, or I guess to open the question, should the Rams be interested in bringing him back? Because way back in February, Sean McVay said he was still open to it. This is what he said at the time. Jimmy G is working through his process right now. We would love to be able to have him. There's some other guys that are out there, but we do need to be able to add another guy into that room, and that's something that we're looking at. And, obviously people make some of the connections with Kirk, speaking about Kirk Cousins. If it doesn't work out with Jimmy G, that's definitely someone that I have tremendous respect for. Kirk is as influential as anyone in helping me get to LA in the first place, and so I know he's got some other options and some other suitors, but Jimmy and Kirk are guys that I would love to have back. So again, that was in February, pre-draft. He talked about potentially wanting one of these veteran quarterbacks back. He even says they're guys I would love to have back. Do the Rams still want to bring Jimmy G back? We're going to try to answer that question in just 1 second here. But before we do, guys, the Rams season is just around the corner from getting started. And as we continue to approach it, it reminds me we've got to get our tickets. And the best place to do so is with our friends over at SeatGeek, guys. My number one way of getting all of my tickets because they make the process so much easier than any other ticket buying platform. And guys, the number one thing I hate about going out to a live event, or number one thing I did hate, I guess, is the cost it can sometimes be to go out and see something. But SeatGeek has me covered on that front every single time because not only is their platform as easy to use as ever, it also ranks every single deal on a scale of 1 to 10. So I know which tickets are the best possible deals for the best possible value. They also scale things on green and red dots. So if I don't want to look at numbers like 1 to 10, I was terrible math student back in the day. I can just look at the colors, go for those green dots, avoid those red dots. And I'm also going to take a look at the seat view every single time. I want to see my view from the seat before I get in the stadium. So I make sure that not only is it a great value, it's actually the seat that I want to have before I get in there. And speaking of the seats that you guys want to have, I've got a code for you to save some money on getting them. You can use code CHAT10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code CHAT10, even if it's not your first time using SeatGeek. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek, for sponsoring today's video. Guys, my take on Jimmy G, as we get back into this conversation, I don't think the Rams really need him anymore. I just, at this point, and no disrespect to Jimmy G, he's a good contributor as a backup for 2 years there, great clipboard holder there. We just don't need him anymore. We've moved on. This is a franchise that has its future in Ty Simpson on the roster, but also has a guy who I think needs to be trusted as a long-term backup in Stetson Bennett. Because if you don't, then why the hell is he still here? If we don't trust Stetson Bennett to potentially be the backup quarterback, then just cut him. But they haven't done that. The Rams have not done that. The Rams are keeping him around for a reason, even with the drafting of Ty Simpson. I think it's because they genuinely view him as the long-term backup quarterback. And again, you guys may be surprised to hear me say that the Rams don't need Jimmy G, because there's been a lot of aggregator reporting lately. And that aggregator reporting all kind of goes along the lines of neither Ty Simpson or Stetson Bennett are able to separate in the QB2 race behind Matthew Stafford. And this is all being interpreted very negatively towards Ty Simpson. And it all originates from a report from one Nate Atkins of The Athletic. And let's dive into that report, which we dove into this report when it initially came out. But if you didn't see that, we're going to do it again right now. Here's what he had to say. Neither Bennett nor Simpson were able to stand out ahead of the other in these moments, as both worked on crossers, slants, outs, and other basic routes, and neither produced much down the field. Bennett did have a lazy out throw that Trent McDuffie picked off, and Simpson overthrew a couple different deeper throws. It's just not as simple as it was with Jimmy Garroppolo, who had started 63 games before he became Stafford's backup the past 2 seasons. Los Angeles planned on bringing Garoppolo back, even with the plan to draft Simpson, but with Garoppolo leaning towards retirement, time will tell whether Simpson or Bennett are ready to fill a void the Rams consider significant, with Stafford's need to take time off, and with the risk from each time Stafford takes a hit. Okay, so we can dive into the idea that the Rams planned on bringing Jimmy G back. I don't think that's necessarily untrue at the time, but this report, the idea that Bennett and Simpson cannot separate from one another, the idea that Bennett and Simpson did not stand out, is entirely based off of one man's observations from 3 open practice sessions. That's a very small sample, guys. That's not a meaningful sample whatsoever. Sean McVay describes this period as not real football. If Sean McVay doesn't even view this as real football, why are we trying to take meaningful conclusions from this? This is Ty Simpson getting his feet wet. And at the end of the day, even if this was real football, Stetson Bennett has almost 4 years in this system that Ty Simpson does not have. Stetson Bennett was a 4-year starter at the college level, where he led a team to multiple national championship appearances. At the end, of course, he's going to be more experienced than Ty Simpson is. He's like 6 years older than the guy is. He's got a bunch of experience on him. Of course, it's going to look that way early on. But Simpson is far more talented. We know the ceiling is much higher. And again, this competition is far from over. Sarah Barshop talked about that recently, saying both Simpson and Bennett will likely see more snaps during training camp in the preseason than other backup candidates around the league because of the approach the Rams are likely to take with Stafford. Although McVay said the Rams are working through the plan for the reigning NFL MVP, Stafford will likely have rest days built into his training camp schedule. And those rest days are going to be huge for this competition. That's where the heat really starts to turn on. When pads are on, we're going through the full process. This is starting to become real football. And of course, the preseason action where we're not going to see any Stafford. It's just going to be these two guys going head to head. Maybe a little Matthew Caldwell sprinkled in there as well if he gets some snaps. It's going to be that. That is when the competition really happens. Right now, we're setting the groundwork for it. It does seem like Stetson Bennett has a slight edge over Ty Simpson to this point, but we have not gotten into the meat and potatoes of this competition, guys. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone tell you it's already done because they don't know. The only guy who knows when this competition is going to be done, the only guy who gets the say on when this competition is going to be done is Sean McVay. And what's incredibly clear about Sean McVay's point of view on things is he believes in what he's seeing from his young guys to this point. He really does. That's been clear time and time again. And we're going to dive into exactly why I feel that way. And if you're still not convinced, I promise you, you will be by the end of today's video that McVay believes not just in Ty Simpson as a long-term franchise quarterback here, but in Stetson Bennett's potential to be the backup as well. But before we get to that, I've got to give a shout out to our presenting sponsor here at Chat Sports and America's #1 sports picks app, the good people over at Prize Picks. Guys, if you've watched anything Chat Sports or the Rams Report in the past, you know all about Prize Picks, but they made today's show possible, and it is time to cash in on your sports knowledge, guys. The app is super easy to use. If you've never played daily fantasy with Prize Picks, all you have to do is pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. And with the social feeds feature, it's easier than ever to get a Prize Picks lineup going. You can share Prize Picks with your friends, and you can even copy their lineups with a single click. And you don't just have to tail them, you can fade them as well. And you can also drop a follow on my account. My username on Prize Picks is Jackson Durham, just my first and last name. And you guys can see all of my picks before I show them off on the show. Right now, I'm rolling on this 5 to win 395, little season-long action on Prize Picks. You guys can tail, you can fade on that one, whatever you want to do, just do it with our friends over there. Prize Picks is available in most states, including California, Florida, and Texas. Join millions of users and sign up for America's #1 sports picks app. And when you do, if you're a brand new user, when you play your first $5 lineup, you're going to get $150 in bonus lineups if you win. Just use code HMA when you sign up. That's right. Prize Picks just switched up their offer. So there's no better time to join, lock in, and win that first lineup. That's code HMA at sign up to get $150 in bonus lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. As always, thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's video. Let's get back to our discussion of the backup quarterback battle. Because as of right now, there is still plenty of time to figure things out between these two guys. There is still plenty of time to determine, A, who's going to be QB2. As of right now, it does still feel like Stetson Bennett's leading the way on that competition. But again, it's a competition that's far from over. Ty Simpson could still retake things at any point here. But again, there's plenty of time for McVay to feel things out if either of them are capable of being the backup. I truly believe that they will show themselves able to do so, and it does seem like McVay is trending in that direction as well. Here's what he had to say on Stetson Bennett. I've seen tremendous growth. I think he's done a really nice job. He's earning the confidence of his teammates in terms of commanding the huddle, and he's done a really good job, or a lot of good stuff in terms of reading with his feet. I think he's had a really good last couple of weeks, and I've been proud of him. Simpson, and then Stu Jackson on Ty Simpson, both of these guys hearing really positive things. Simpson understands the quarterback room he's in, and more importantly, the shape of the roster overall. So he's content with learning from Stafford, Bennett, and Los Angeles' coaching staff. He's also committed to putting in the extra work necessary outside of practice. And that's not the first time we've heard about extra work with him. Offensive coordinator Nate Scheelhaase also mentioned how Ty Simpson has been staying late, coming in early, being that type of guy that the Rams need in this organization. And if you're still not convinced, I want you to hear this from Sean McVay himself. He was asked very recently, straight up, are you thinking about adding a veteran quarterback to this roster? And he said, that's not something that we've really talked about as of right now. I would never rule it out, but not right now. That hasn't been something that we've talked about. There it is. They haven't talked about that. It has not been a discussion that the Rams have had up until this point, bringing in a veteran quarterback. I think they smokescreened people before the draft into thinking that their direction was going to be a veteran QB. They wanted people to believe that that is what they were doing. They wanted people to believe that the 13th overall pick was not going to be used on a quarterback. And then, bam, they gotcha again. They do this every year. They trick us every time. I don't know why I take the bait, but I did again this year. I truly believe they were interested in a receiver, but they're just really good at this smokescreen game, guys. You really can't believe what you're hearing pre-draft from the Rams about their plans. But now we got to talk about a different conversation, because this is something I'm seeing on Twitter in the wake of this. Is Jimmy's retirement consideration why the Rams picked Ty Simpson? I saw this primarily from the Rams Bros podcast. They put something out on Twitter, and this was in response to the idea of Jimmy retiring. They quote tweeted it. I can't remember exactly what they said, but somebody responded to it essentially, or they were saying like, it doesn't make sense that Jimmy G doesn't want to be in Los Angeles. And someone responded to it. He would have made like $10 million to hold the clipboard and be the backup to Matthew Stafford. Must be nice to be Jimmy G. And he said, makes no effing sense. Strongly doubt Simpson is a Ram if he, speaking of Jimmy G, never contemplated retirement. Is this true? No, this is not true. I really don't agree with what they're trying to construe there. No offense intended. I understand why you would think that. But the Rams entered the draft. If all of the reporting that we've heard pre-draft is true, they entered that draft. They entered, I think, 2 months before that draft, maybe 3 months before that draft, well before the season ended. They were taking Ty Simpson no matter what. They Vontae Mack'd this thing. They walked into this draft with it's literally draft day. Ty Simpson no matter what. That was the thought process. It was Ty Simpson no matter what at the 13th overall pick. And if you don't agree with me, you didn't hear this report. This was way back right after the draft. We heard this from Tom Pelissero. Way back in December, when Ty Simpson was still playing at Alabama, his dad, Jason, was calling people that he knows in the NFL, that he knows through football circles, and basically seeking input on, hey, should my son come out in the draft? Should he transfer? Should he stay at Alabama? One of the people that he leaned heavily on and told him in December, the floor is the first round for Ty Simpson, was Les Snead, the Rams general manager. So then they're out there in LA for the Rose Bowl. The Rams actually have Ty Simpson's parents over to the facility. They spend time with them. And when they ask, why should Ty Simpson come out in this draft? Hone in right now. Lock in if you're not listening. The answer was because I'm going to take him with the 13th overall pick. That's the quote. According to Tom Pelissero, that is what was told to Ty Simpson and his family in January. Way before Jimmy G is even thinking about retiring. Almost certainly. There was no word on that until well after the season. I would be shocked if it had already been considered prior to that. There's nothing we've heard that indicates that would be the case. So as far as we know, the Rams made the Ty Simpson decision independently of anything Jimmy G intended to do. Maybe they would have brought Jimmy G back if he'd wanted to come back earlier on and still drafted Ty Simpson. The only thing that changes if they did do that is Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett's just not here in that situation. Stetson Bennett's either traded or cut. That is the only thing that would have changed if Jimmy G had told the Rams, I want to come back and I'll do whatever it takes to get a deal done. I truly feel they were going to draft Ty Simpson no matter what. But with all that being said, where do you stand now? I asked you at the beginning of today's video, do you want Jimmy G back? Do you want to bring back the guy who's been the backup to Matthew Stafford the last 2 years? Obviously, someone who understands Sean McVay's scheme pretty well. He's a veteran quarterback. Or do you want to let it ride with the young guys? Stetson Bennett and Ty Simpson, let them duel it out, see who wins this QB2 job. I'm thinking it's going to be Ty at the end of the day. But even if it isn't, understand why that's probably the case is Stetson's experience in this scheme at the end of the day could still allow him to win out. It's nothing to really worry about if that ultimately becomes the case. But let me know in the comment section below, do you want Jimmy G back on this roster for 2026?